What up, what up? Praise Yah. There we go. All right. Praise Yah. Shalom, shalom. Yasharal. Shalom, shalom. Mashpaka. Shalom, shalom. Trust everybody's having the most awesome. Where are we on now? the fourth yom, the third yom of the Shabua going into the fourth. And we're about to start the feast of SaCUT. We're all learning this stuff together. Forgive me, I wasn't prepared. I was looking up stuff and I felt moved in the Ruach, and then I'm trying to catch up my mind with what I'm doing. I'm like, my Ruach, the Ruach Yahuwah me's moving. My mind's still thinking about other things, and I'm all over the place at once, So I'm like, oh, come down back to earth. But I was learning. I was thinking about stuff I was learning. Yahuwah just filled me with the Ruach of learning again, like re-educating me on Abadi, the Hebrew, and yeah, I allowed for it on Yom HaKaparim, the Day of Atonement. I was like right around that, like what that night or the Sabbath after, even the Shabbat, the Shabbat for the Shabbat, the Sabbath for the week. Um, all those 3-4 days, past few days, I've just been on my knees, getting on my knees here and there, and I allowed. I'm like, Yahuwah, fill me with that ruach that I had with you when he first brought me into the truth. Like when he first revealed your name to me, and when he first revealed his name to me was right here in San Diego. That's why I love it here. Why it's intimate to me, because this is to me like where Yaqub, laid his head on the rock, and then he had that dream of the Malachim, the messengers going up and down. And he woke up in fear and trembling, and he's like, "Man, this place is nother than the house of Yahuwah. Like I'm sitting in his living room right now." And that's kind of how it felt for me right here in San Diego, in a certain area that I was in. Like he like chose to put his name here in the ruach, in the presence of where I was at, and that's where he revealed himself to me. So that's like I felt like he put a tabernacle right here for me. That's what the Feast of Tabernacle. I didn't even know I was gonna go into it like that, but brought you inspiration. That's what the Feast of Tabernacle is all about. Is when it's the shadow of looking forward to when Yahushua comes down. He makes his tabernacle among men at his coming, gathering all the fruit-bearing trees, the branches, and the fragrant branches, the tree branches that bore fruit and bring up that fragrance. The petitions of the Kodashim are like a fragrant aroma. It's like incense before Yahuwah. So those are like the fragrant branches, and then those who bore the fruit of righteousness, the Torah, in the right way, long suffering to do it in the right way, in his compassion and his ahava and his long suffering, his patience and all that, teaching it in gentleness and kindness and whatnot, teaching it steadfast, not wavering, not growing weary of doing that right work, to follow him in that way, to share the word. And so that's tabernacles. He's coming back and he's gathering all of that, but nonetheless, he still does that in realm, in a realm phase, realm wise, like, from time to time, and in our experiences, like you have these intimate moments that he reveals himself to you, that he shows you something, he puts you through this. It's almost like y'all are on this special retreat together. You go on a retreat, like I just gotta take a sabbatical, they say, and they'll go out and like get a cabin and do some, nafash searching, some inner being searching, and then they make their peace with Yah, the Creator, with nature, and that's basically what these feasts do. They get us one, and Yahuwah is the author of all that. He's sort of writing that into your timeline. You're not doing that on your own. He's inspiring us because he wants to get us alone. We're his. He lifts up nations and puts others down. He's ultimately in control of us at the subconscious level. He's trying to impress us, give us that inclination to follow him. As long as we're always mindful of him, we're gonna somehow always find ourselves where we need to be with him. Just try to always put off the shenanigans, and sometimes you have to go through phases of waiting and being still. But nonetheless, all this to say that that's what I went through when I got to San Diego. I was working a job in Texas, and it just felt like dead end though. I just put myself in a little trap on a mouse on the wheel, and I was just perceiving Yahuwah from the corner of my eye, like, when am I gonna get to experience you? And he's like, when you get off that wheel. And then so one day he just told me to get off that wheel, and so I got off that wheel and jumped in his hands. And next thing you know, I ended up in San Diego, and then I ended up, he put me in the spot. Miraculously, I've shared this stuff before, but I ended up in downtown in the gas lamp, in the smack in the middle of the center of the universe, center of the world, where they do Comic Con goes through there, Mardi Gras goes through there, LGBT festivities go through there, everything goes through there. And he filled me with at the height of my peak of the fire with that first love, where you're just like tenacious and on fire. So I was passing out, I was ordering tracks, sharing the word, street preaching, microphone, shofar blowing, day and night, day and night, day and night, all day for like a few years straight. And then you get burnt out, you get wore out, you get PTSD because you go through so much trauma because people telling you things, there's just a lot of negativity, and after a while, you just need that rest. It brings you into that rest, and that during that time, you pull me aside, and he's like, I'm gonna show you, just some stuff that's gonna make you feel better, treasures to cheer you up. And he starts showing me more historical things, more about the biblical feasts, and then that's around that times when he revealed to me his name, Yahuwah, Yahusha, and he's like, I make it known to you, like to those who I love and choose. He can't reveal the Father to you unless He does it, right? Like when he said, like, no one knows the bond except the Abba, or no one knows the Abba except the bond, no one knows the bond except the Abba, and to whom He wants to reveal Him. That's not just like the scriptures and the message of Messiah, but like Him fully in the most inner depth level. Like, hey, there's layers to this. The idea of me is just the outer surface. That's just, you know, playing GI Joes as kids, and then there's JROTC, and then there's actually joining the military. You know what I mean? And then there's actually, being a part of his government and his stuff. And so there's levels to it in the Ruach, and then and just like Illuminati, they have their levels to it. There's stuff they tell you surface level, and then there's stuff how they actually operate behind the scenes, and part of that, it's duality reflective on the side of light is, Yahuwah only gives so much to the world, and then like as you go deeper with him, he'll start to reveal you more things like, man, it ain't the first day, it's the Sabbath day. It ain't these feasts. That's all worldly. That's like, go ahead and play with that if that's what you want. But it's these biblical things that really honor me, and that ain't my name. That's the names of other deities. But if that's what you grew up with, you love tradition more than truth, then that's what camp you're in, But I'm right here in the truth. So he revealed to me the name Yahuwah Yahusha right here to me in San Diego, above the Whiskey Girl at 444 G Street, apartment number 6, Co-Block Hotel, Co-Block. I'll never forget it. That's like intimate to me. It's a part of me forever because that's where he met me in the secret place. And I can feel his presence there all the time, day in, day out, like especially on the Shabbat. Everything felt like a dream. I felt like I was already in eternity, and like a part of me in the end that reaches eternity was vibrating to that present moment. Like the past, like the end. It was informing me to the beginning, to the even present moment. It was like a live strum from the end. String, you strum a guitar string, it's gonna vibrate from that inside that you plucked at the strings all the way. It's gonna vibrate to that moment. So to the present, to the beginning. So nonetheless, all that to say that I felt like he put a supernatural realm tabernacle. Boom! I'm gonna make my dwelling here. Put my name on you in this place. Like wherever you go, I go. And so we've been rocking with each other ever since. And nonetheless, I've been looking at the Hebrew. So these past few days, I've been getting on my knees, and I'm like, yeah, bring me back to that intimate place that I had with you when I first, like in those moments, those big phases, but especially that big one when I first came to San Diego. That was like the big one when you revealed to me your name. And he did. All of a sudden that night, I was falling asleep. I felt like I was on the bed in that room. I felt that presence again. I literally thought I was there again. Like whoa, like just looking around just slightly, I can feel like I could see it looked like the room even at that time. I was like, he gave me that little view where it kind of resembled it, and I was like, oh man, I'm back here again, and I can feel like he was like giving me that glimpse, like don't look around too much more because then you're gonna realize you're not there, but this like will remind you of it, and you're feeling it, and I'm here with you. Like, what do you want? Like not what do you want like that, but he's like tell me anything and I got you. Like what can I do for you? There's that part about him too, like the God father, right? Like the Yah father, he's the Yah Abba. So the Yah Abba part of him was like, make your request to me. I'm like, he came to me, and I'm like, all right. I want to get out, not because it's more than just his presence, but he knows that you want something more out of him. And if you ask according to his desire, according to the plan, then he's going to do it. Because if you delight yourself in him, you're delighting yourself in his dynamic, you're delighting yourself in his paradigm, in his narrative, in him, what it's all about. Not about you, it's about him, making him known. So I delighted myself in him. So I asked according to his desire, and I said, I wanna go back to when you first used to teach me all this knowledge, when you first used to show me about the feasts and certain things. And yeah, we got that pretty much now squared away. But like bring me back to that ruach of learning and knowledge for, like, I don't know, the Abadi, the Hebrew, like that's what I want to learn. I want to learn Abadi. And then bam, past few days I've been just picking up that book finally because I couldn't pick it up. Like something was there was like a mental block there, like a ruach, an energetic blockade, because of shenanigans, distracted, worrying about my fleshly situation, like probation, like the word says, those who are in the world, or those who are, like Paul gives, in the dynamic of marriage, but it's the same thing. Like those who are married are concerned with the things of the world, how to please their wife. But even just being those who are in the world, in the sense that have to have attention to it because of their situation, like a lot of work and taking care of bills and whatnot, or even probation, you get concerned, like you're putting your energy to that. So then you don't have any energy left. Like when it comes to the book, you're like, man, I'm just tired, but I trust in it. But I'm like, nah, I want to actually have the energy for it. Like whatever you got to do. So he kept me still for a couple of days and not worrying about it. Like you have to literally cut off the worrying and like doing things for that, and just rest and trust him. He's gonna have it figured out. And then bam, then it's like deleting the apps. It's the process of deleting storage, from things that you're giving into to make room to download that new app, the Bari learn Abari, the ancient Hebrew, So I'm like, all right, bam, all of a sudden I was just grabbing the book now. All of a sudden after took like 2 3 days of like waiting and resting. It's like felt like kind of like death in a way, because it says die to yourself, take up your ta, follow him. So you have to like wait for that resurrection. Like you put yourself to death and then you get that resurrection. So finally, he gave me that resurrection, and I picked up the book, and he's been inspiring me, Google, and I feel the ruach again, like that ruach of searching, and all the right articles, all the right resources are coming up all of a sudden miraculously. Because before I would look up things, it's just like even the stuff that was coming up was vague, and like you could just feel like this isn't the kind of information I'm looking for, because it's a reflection of you and what's in you and what he was allowing you to receive. He's like, nah, now's not the time. You're not there yet. But then once you're there, he'll give you the best, and you feel it, and you're ready for it, and you're ready to eat it all up, to enjoy it and really take it in and consume it and get the most out of it. So bam, there I was. And so all that to say, other stuff he showed me, that's for another time in the body. But concerning this time, the KhaG that we're now entering of SaCUT, the Feast of Tabernacles. We usually say like, you know, um, what do you say? Joyful, like SaCUT, KhaG SaCUT, SaMakh, which is, joyful, festive SaCUT. But then I was looking at those words, like in the Abadi, like where it references the Feast of Tabernacles, and it has the word ASaPh there in one of them. It calls it the Feast of Ingathering, which is ASaPh. And so, and I realized ASaPh means to gather. It's the gathering of the palm branches and the leafy twigs and all the fruit bearing branches, and all that kind of stuff. The nature, right? You gather to the tabernacle, and that's a reflection of us. And so we're supposed to gather together. Then I decided to look up the word, like the actual scripture where it says to keep the feast of tabernacles, and I wanted to read. I really wanted to get it in depth where it talks about the first day, is a Sabbath rest, Sabbath day, because I was trying to see what is the actual word for rest, and it turns out the word more for rest is like nuach, like Noah. It means rest, right? So like he rested the ship, he was resting in the boat, going through that turbulence of the world, but then finally rested, new shamayim new aretz. But Sabbath is more pertaining to the seventh day, but it's like a play on words. They use in a dual way to mean rest because you rest on the seventh day, so it becomes the meaning is both. You need to get in here. All right. Oh, you got the bun right here. Oh, you gotta do it. All right, all right. You need help with anything? Cool. All right, all right. Praise God. Yeah. So, it's the homeowner coming in. But yeah, so Shabbat is more like it's a 7 day. So I wanted just to see because I want to be sure. I want to know that I know what I'm saying is accurate or like it's in context. Because you look up certain words in the body like in scripture and the lexicon, and it's like not even the same word. Like they interchange it. They transliterate in English. For example, like the word baruch, and so but that's not even the same word. Let me go inside real quick. Just because I get distracted. Yeah, that's not even the same word in what do you call it? That's in in a lot of the scripture. All right, there we go. Losing a little connection there for a second. Yeah, so a body is like okay. Quick example is Psalms Tahalim 119, the famous Psalms 119. So they use the word Baruch, which transliterated into English is BLESS, which I don't say because BLESS has etymology tied to paganism where it means the blood sprinkling on pagan altars. So I say favor because that's what BLESS, what they mean it to mean. So they say Yah, God or Yah, BSU. I say Yah, favor you. Same thing. Well, actually, more accurate because favor is more understood. It's an actual. It's a pure word. You know what I mean? It's more potent. It's more pure English form. So nonetheless, they use Baruch, right, to mean favored. Um, so like Psalms 119, the word isn't Baruch there though in the Abadi, but they'll translate it BS, or they'll even like the Hallelujah Scriptures, our translation will put Baruch there, like it's supposed to be the actual direct, like the actual word is supposed to be there because there's no English equivalent. So like certain translations will just leave the word there, so they put Baruch or those walk in the way who keep the Torah of Yahuwah. Baruch are those in the way who guard the Torah of Yahuwah. But when I looked in the Abadi, in the original ancient Hebrew, the lexicon in the book, it says Ashadi. It says Ashadi. And I'm like, Ashadi? And so I looked up Ashadi, and Ashadi is found a lot throughout the scriptures. And probably, I only looked at a couple of things, but it's enough to know, like, intuitively, like, oh, I see what's going on already. I think there's a handful, may not half, but maybe a third or nice chunk, a nice quarter of spots that translate Baruch and like Hallelujah script or BS in English, but like favorite, but it shouldn't even be that. It should be Ashadi, and Ashadi means like joyful or like content, because there's a word for joyful already that's SaMakh, and that means like to feel lifted up, and it expresses. But content is uh, to be in a state of peace and security and lifted up. Like you feel lifted up, but it doesn't express. It's more like content is you're uplifted and you're secure and it brings peace. So you're in a state of peace. That's content. You're chill. You're fine with, like, you're at peace with it, but you feel uplifted, and that's the word that you see Ashadi means in a lot of the scriptures, but they put Baruch, favor. So I like it because it gives a different connotation When you think about it, like Tahalim Psalms 119, Baruch favored, it shouldn't be that. It says Ashadi there. So content are those in the way who walk in the Torah of Yahuwah. And I love that because content is like, it's not necessarily that you're going to be favored. You know what I mean? Because what did Yahusha say? He says, narrow is the gate, very few find it. Very narrow is the gate and hard pressed. It's going to be difficult because you're going to be trying to keep the Torah, but everything's going to come against that. You know what I mean? The world is designed to be like ocean currents that go against the way of Yah. So basically, you're not going to be. So when we see that with the if you're being righteous and keeping the commandments, you're gonna be favored. You should be prosperous and rich. A lot of those scriptures was not that word, and I think that's where the false God paradigm gets its foot in because it tries to deceive people, and somehow they got their foot still in his camp in the world, but thinking they're doing the desire of Yah and thinking they're favored Baruch, but really they're just BS. But really, a lot of those scriptures is not talking about being Baruch favored, like and prosper. It's talking about just being content, that you're secure, you're at peace with it. You're uplifted because you're doing His desire, regardless what's going on around you, how it's coming against you, and that's physically putting you down, but ruachly you're lifted up because you're in His desire anyways. You're suffering like the Nabim did. You're being put to death like Yahusha was, and so you're content. You're uplifted with a secure expectation of eternity, and it brings shalom that you can rest in because you're where you need to be, and that is what ashadi means, content. Not they try to say means HAPPI, which is or Y, which is a pagan deity. Yeah, also is why I don't say that. You got a song like that, you know. I won't even go that far. I used to like do that, like actually mimic the song, but I don't even want to do that no more. But it's not HAPPY. It's not even joyful. It's content. The Ruach spoke to me, and I will see the context of the word being used, and it's content. And Yahuwah was telling me it's content. And even glad maybe, but glad is a little more. Glad is more temporary. Like you can be glad for a moment. Like, oh, I'm glad that worked out. Like in that moment, I'm glad. I'm feeling that at that moment. But content is a state of being. It's like a expectation or having a secure expectation. Content or joyful. Joyful is kind of a state of being too. Joyful and content are kind of similar. Joyful is just being a little bit more uplifted with a little bit more expression. But nonetheless, it kind of simmers back down to content. Content's really where you want to be. And so, all that to say, I even looked at how Hallelujah scriptures translate. Where like Luke 6, where it says, Baruch are you when they persecute you and hate you and say all kinds of wicked things about you for my name's sake. Baruch are you, right? Because so they treated the Nabim who were before you. And I'm like, I wonder if like, because they actually just wrote it in, they translated themselves, like they just used their own ruach discerning, and inspiration on translating the entire Brit Hadashah New Testament back into the Abadi. They did it themselves, and they did it, from what I can see, a pretty nice job. So I looked at how they did that, and they did that one right. I went back and it actually says there, Ashadi, so they get this stuff. It says Ashadi are those who are persecuted, and hated and talked against or whatever, and every wicked word against spoken, every wicked word against them for my namesake. It says Ashadi. Content are they, content, because you're not being Baruch, you're not being favored. Like maybe you're being favored by Yah, but the idea is that you should be content. He doesn't want us to have like this, oh, I'm favored, like I'm being hit, I'm favored, like, yeah, you are favored by yeah, but he also wants you to know, like, hey, this is how you respond to this. You should be content. Content are those. And so that's just kind of a little side lesson, but a big one. It's actually like a foundational thing that we should have, be content with whatever's going on. Like Shad says, I eat the meat, spit the bones. Again, I'm not for Shah in a sense, because in the end, he pretty much was trying to, I feel, bring people to himself and teach the law was done away with to the Goyim, because he's creating this new thing. That's why he was in prison, in a lavish prison, and I think that he had his own agenda, because he knew that if the Goyim, the Galatians, the Gentiles were starting to get Torah centric, they would start going to Yerushalayim and give their tithes and offerings to Yerushalayim, to the people, to the Yahudim there, the believers, and he didn't want that there, so he was trying to sever any and all connection between the Gentiles going to the Yahudim because he knew it could, yeah, in a sense, it was discerning. Could badly can get up in the false hands of the Pharisees, but he knew that they were going to the believing Yahudim anyways. What he didn't want is, he did all this work and now their tithes and offerings being redirected. Um, to the Yahudim, and he gets kind of cut out. Like he's like, I labored for this. This is mine. So don't worry about them. The law, don't even worry about that. You don't have to go there. Like we're outside of that. It's love and tithes and offerings. I got it. It's right here. Bring it to me. Kind of idea. And I know it seems not too far fetched because then he had that sharp, dissension or argument with Barnabas, and why? Because Paul found it not fit to bring Yahukanan, who did not come to the labor to build those congregations, so he didn't find it fit for him to come, and that's not brotherly love. That's because the reason why he didn't find it fit because they knew they were going over there to receive tithes and offerings. That's how they lived. They would go to congregation and ask for help. Ask for like to be restocked up on provisions and some financial help. As they traveled around. So it's kind of like you know, living off of that. And Shah knew they'd have to split that with Yahoo. And I was like, I'm not splitting it with him. But then that's against Torah. It's not brotherly love. You're not sharing all things. You're not. It's not the fruit of the ruach. Dawood said too when it came back and got the plunder and somebody in his army was like, I don't want to share with the people that watch the bags. They didn't go with us to the battle. And he said, should not they also partake in the spoil since they watch the bags? And he's like, this is a law from now on. Whatever we get, we benefit from the nations or whatever plunder or whatever, we're gonna split it amongst all people. Everybody, we're gonna distribute it all, especially first to the widows and like the orphans and the poor and all that. And here you see that kind of blueprinted dynamic playing out with Shal, and he didn't want to bring Yahukanan, and that's why they split up, and that's a greed issue. And he even says it in Romans 7. He said, I would not have known what a coveter was had the command not said, thou shalt not covet. And after that, became an exceedingly great coveter. And you don't just think he was being poetic. He really meant it. He was an exceedingly great coveter, and he coveted position. That's why Yaqub wrote about him. The entire book of Yaqub was low key about Shah when he said, you desire position. You desire position, do not have. You ask and do not receive. You don't receive because you ask wickedly to spend on your pleasures. Not all should be teachers. If one is not perfect in tongue, and so Shah was in perfect tongue, because it sounded like he was saying the law was done away with, you know. So, oh foolish man, do not know. So all that, done with all that, putting that aside, that's just for people that haven't heard that. That's what that is. Shad said, I labored more than they. No, but he labored more than they, according to his opinion. But what does the scripture say? Proverbs 27, let another man exalt you, a stranger, and not your own lips. And he exalted himself. I labor more than they, this and that, where does Yaakov say? Where does quarreling and strives come up among you? Like where does strives and quarrelings like spring forth from you? Is it not from like the wickedness, like the sin warring within your members? You covet and do not have. You ask and do not receive. You do not receive because he's talking about Shot. Because he had quarreling. Where does quarreling and striving come up from you? He's talking about Shot. When he strived, when he rebuked Peter to his face, and then he wrote about it. I rebuked him to his face. Like you're putting drama on the books. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be speaking. That's like personal stuff, but he's putting in the record books. Like that's too much. And he said, and whatever, and those who would consider themselves to be pillars, whatever they are, makes no difference to me. They added nothing to me. He was like speaking bad of the elders and all that kind of stuff. Like he didn't respect their authority, because they weren't like really helping him out financially. They just gave him the right hand of approval, but that's why he says they added nothing to me. Like they didn't help me try to do my my job, my part of the ministry, I had to do it myself. And maybe because they wanted to watch and see what he does, maybe, and see they understood Shal already came from finance, like prosperity. He was supposed to be like the next Joel Osteen, but then Yahusha came and turned his world upside down. So he can't beat him, join him. He still tried to come in and do his thing. And Benjamin, right? Tribe Benjamin is described in Genesis 49, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a wolf that divides the spoil. He's all about dividing the spoil. He didn't want to divide it with John, though. And that's what. So there's a lot to that. That's another. We've already been through that multiple times. That's it for now. But nonetheless, I was studying the words in the Feast of Tabernacle, and it had the words. It didn't say it's a Sabbath. It says that on the seventh. Um, on the seventh month, that's there on the 15th Yom, you have a convocation, or what was said, a MaQRA. I'm like, a MaQRA? It didn't say a Sabbath rest, it said a MaQRA, so I looked it up, and it just means a gathering, a calling together of a congregation, a calling together of a gathering, and that's what also says the Feast of Ingatherings, like in Shamut, Exodus 34. Exodus 34, Feast of Ingatherings, and I believe also in is it also Exodus 23? Yeah, I believe so. Exodus 23 and 34, they both reference it as the Feast of Ingathering, and these three times in the year, the Feast of Ingathering, and that's the word ASaPh. It's given Leviticus. All right, all right. I'm gonna just have to walk around because I notice when I'm not, that's when I get like the Wi-Fi starts to cut off. But yeah, so yeah, the Feast of Ingathering, gather together. That's the word ASaPh. It's referenced as both. So when you go to let me see, when you go to Leviticus 23, that's when it does call SaCUT. The Feast of SaCUT, KhaG, and that means tabernacles. And then you also see it called SaCUT again in Zechariah 14. It says, all the nations that do not come up to Jerusalem to keep KhaG SaCUT, the Feast of Tabernacles, or KhaG La SaCUT, the Feast of Tabernacles, shall not get any rain, but uh, will get plagued like the plagues of Egypt. And so yeah, so it's called both. Two witnesses for Feast of Ingathering and two witnesses for KhaG SaCUT. Feast of Ingathering is Shamut, Exodus 23 and 34, and then Feast of Tabernacles is in Leviticus 23 and Zechariah 14. And so both, but you got to put those things together because it means you dwell in tabernacles, but it also means you gather together. You gather together. It doesn't say it's a Sabbath. It says you do no work. So it's got a Sabbath characteristic. It's got a Sabbath dynamic. So there's no work done. But I think what separates a Sabbath from a MaQRA is a Sabbath is more like you're gonna sleep in a little bit, you're gonna get some rest. Like it's a day to rest and relax and just kind of take it slow, take it easy, meditate, rest in Yah, meditating by resting in Yah, closing your eyes, kicking back, reading the word, and you gotta have some time to just kick back and recharge, rest, relax, kick back and relax and sleep in a little bit, you know. Whereas a MaQRA is you could technically say it's a Sabbath, it's like a Sabbath rest, but it's not a Sabbath in that sense. It's a day off from work, but you're gathering together. It's like what you would have at the thankfulness celebration, right? And all those, December 25th when you come together with family, and it's kind of like a party. Come together. It's a congregation. It's a ASaPh, a gathering, and you you celebrate. You go through the word and you decorate. You know, and so you want to pull that stuff now. Like it says to build a tabernacle. The what? What drinks? Oh yeah, 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 yeah. You know what? I think I actually left the thing upstairs somewhere. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, it's in the closet, like under one of the folds of clothes. Just kind of go through the fold. I slid it. Yeah, I think under the pants. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, you wanna gather together is basically what it's about. So that's where I'm needing some help. I need to find some Hakim because yeah, I trust that I'm gathering with Yahuwah Yahusha and Ruach Hakodash and Malakim of the Shamaim, and that's why maybe the Ak came down right now. The messenger like to let me know, like, 'cause that's where my thought was going. Like, I'm by myself. I need some, and then he came down. Like I always said, like he's a malak, like a messenger speaking to me, like letting me know, like you're not alone. Even when you're alone, you got the projected and the ruach around me cosmically that we have seen. And so I like saying that instead of the other word, like WITCH or WHICH, because it's like that. It makes it more firm, like that we have seen. And yeah, so you want to get an assembly going or congregation going, and gather together, and you want to start for sure. I'm running late before the 15th yom, before the evening, like the 14th yom at the latest on the 14th yom today. Like this yom, like for me, I'm starting SaCUT tonight, so this afternoon should be building everything, or you know, or for sure tomorrow. Like it should be going up because it's you're not working as far as like buy sell trade. You're taking a day off from the jobs and all the buy sell trade, but you're still gonna be doing work. That's why it's not like a Sabbath, because you're gonna be decorating the Saka, and I think that's what that's about. So it's a gathering, a congregation, a called gathering, and everybody comes, and then it's like, think of it like the egg day, because I think they still dynamics from us, but then when we want to do something for Yah, we don't want anything to do with how they do, but then they stole those things from us, so it's really like, and it keeps us from doing it the way we should be. But they go out and they go looking for eggs, right? Well, I think in the same way we're supposed to go out and be searching out like for branches and fruit bearing trees and leafy greens and twigs and cool trees, just bunch of branches, a bunch of sticks and twigs and green, whatever you can find, just break branches off the trees. It don't have to be nothing special. Like, I mean, it's special in itself because you're doing the command. But I think when he said like palm tree branches and leafy twigs, the willow and whatnot, was just like him giving us some examples. Yah was giving us some examples of what to grab, like get stuff that's a little more exotic than just the natural tree. But I mean, you find something that sticks out a little more than others anywhere you go. So just grab some cool looking stuff and bring it together. Is basically all you're doing, and making it nice and decorative. Decorative is what he's saying. And so that's the work you do on Shabbat, or not Shabbat, but on the MaQRA, the gathering. Because I was like, how is it a Sabbath? But it says on that same day, you dwell in tabernacles, and you grab, you collect the branches, and you collect all this stuff for it. But you're doing it on a day that's supposed to be a Sabbath, like a rest. So like, I don't get it. Like, do you gather on the 14th and then just have it ready, and then on the evening when the night's going down, you build in the evening? I would say that makes sense, and that way you have it already in the evening, for the rising, but you do it in the going down. That makes sense. That's how I would do. I played out. That's working out your salvation, fear and trembling. I worked out some multitude scenarios in my mind when to do it. Or I'm like, or should we just let the 14th night go and don't even do nothing to the night, and then the 15th at the rising, then we go out and grab all the stuff and you know collect it and then bring it and build it on that same yom, so it's also more reflective too. And I'm like, well, I guess you can do it that way too, because it's not technically like a Shabbat where you have to do it before, sundown of the 14th. You can do it on the same yom as the 15th because it doesn't necessarily say it's a Sabbath, so you wouldn't treat it that way. It says it's a MaQRA. It says a called gathering, so you can even do it that same exact yom on the 15th. I would treat it the way I'm inspired. I don't think it's influenced from the bunny egg day. I think this is how it's. This is where we're meant to put that ideology in, that idea, that influence, that inspiration is send the kids out, send everybody goes run to the woods, not looking for eggs, but looking for cool branches, gathering flowers and maybe some limes off the limes and lemons and oranges off the grab a few of those, you know, not a few, literally everyone grab one, so there's a few, but just grab one or two and bring it all back, and then you put up a tent. What I found works really well is bamboo, because bamboo will actually well, no, you got to tie it down though. You know what really works well? There's like these things that people that make fences or when they're building like a little garden or something, that they used to like tie the tree up, like a little small tree that they're planting, and it's like those wooden stakes. There's like these big wooden stakes. I don't know if you can get them Home Depot or what, but it's literally got like a pointy pike at one end. You can just bam pike it into the ground. Like if you're pretty accurate in the same spot, just or hammer the top or whatever. But it works for me just going over up and down in it, and yeah, once you get that, you get four corners. You get it driven in like a nice solid foot in or so. It'll hold strong. Those things hold up nice, and all you're doing is putting a sheet on top. You get four of those, stick them in the grass and the dirt, and you're done. And then you just throw a sheet on top, tie the corners of the sheet down with some string or with a nail if you want to, get them nailed in there, however you want to do it, and then just start decorating it. Tie all those palm branch leaves and stuff on the four corners of the thing, and that's it. And then you're out in the open. Like I think that's more, and then you can like sleep under it. For me, I know people, we always borrow from inspirations because we don't know how to do it. I looked into it at first, how they're like the Jewish people did it, like how Jews do it, Jewish people, and I see like it's like you know with the looks like a box, and then I used to do it differently, but not kind of like the box thing too. But usually they just have like a little table there, a couple chairs, like they just sit like it's like a picnic thing. But I think originally we're supposed to if possible, if you can do it, dwell in it for 7 days. It says like I think you eat, sleep, read, hang out under it, and that's like for 7 days. You don't. I mean, yeah, you come out and play and whatever, but like that's your home for 7 days is how I saw it. And I did it that way a few times. Now I can't really do it that way because I'm in this situation, and that's who were trying to show me you know, what do you do when you're in this situation? So this is kind of like the test he's just giving me. Is like, I want to see how you operate in different situations and still keep it, because there's other people in certain situations that can't keep it either, and you kind of got to be that light for them, that kind of encouragement. Like, hey, I'm in the same boat with you. Yahusha wasn't even born in a home. He was born, in a feeding trough, in a cave or in a pig's, not a pig, but in an animal barn cave that was used for an animal barn or whatnot, something like that. Like, however, but it wasn't the best place. But yeah, he got born, he got it done, he was wrapped, and he had a little feeding trough to lay in. So bare minimum, Yahoo provides what you need. So I'm like, yeah, you know. So you got to work with what you got and do what you can. I'm opening the windows because they're all closed. It's a little dark, but I don't have the lights all bright, so I'm just opening all the windows. Like, that one's closed. So yeah, you wanna work with what you got. You feel me? And to what I would say to those who can't do it, like they can't go out camping. We got real little young kids, babies, and you can't just have a baby out there in the weather, baking in the sun with mosquitoes and whatnot. And I get it now. Now I get it because before I was like, everybody, come on, let's go, get out there. And but you can't always do that. So even if all you can do is get like a table. Now this is not a great example because it's more like a bench dynamic. But even a table, usually most tables, right? They have four corner, you know, posts holding up the table. Even if you have to use a table, it's halfway done for you. Throw a little white sheet on it to say like you throw a cover, like even the tablecloth, and just decorate the tablecloth. Like decorate it with like fruit bearing trees, palm branches. Like tie up some palm branches on each corner, and then boom, the kids already play under the table. How often are just kids like just playing under the table, trying to go under the table at dinner time and breakfast or whatever, or just hanging out under the table, just trying to fall asleep under the table. They already know what the SaCUT is. So even if you have to use the kitchen table, use the kitchen table. If you want to make a tent in the living room, make it fun. If you're creative and you know how to spread out the tent and tie them all together and blow a fan under it, make the thing come alive, come up. We used to do that when we were kids. Use that. That's your SaCUT right there, and then just decorate it, and then call it, KhaG SaCUT, KhaG la SaCUT, joyful or Feast of Tabernacles. KhaG la SaCUT, KhaG la SaCUT. Yeah. And what's cool about California is, yeah, I just want to make sure I covered all that. KhaG SaMakh, KhaG is like festive, like a festival, an appointed festival. SaMakh is joyful. So it's like, like Spanish things are backwards. Like really what you're saying is, and what it's saying is festive, or yeah, festival joy, or festive joy day. Yom ASaPh is gathering. SaCUT. So KhaG SaMakh Yom ASaPh SaCUT MaQRA Shalom is like peaceful, like pleasant gathering. MaQRA Shalom. Instead of saying Shabbat Shalom, where that's like Sabbath rest, like peaceful Sabbath rest, pleasant Sabbath, pleasant rest. MaQRA Shalom would be like pleasant gathering. So KhaG SaMakh Yom ASaPh. That's festive, joyful day of gathering, feast, tabernacles. Joyful, festive, gathering, day of, hold on. KhaG SaMakh Yom ASaPh SaCUT MaQRA Shalom is joyful. Forgive me, festive, joyful, day of gathering, tabernacles, and then uh, gathering shalom, or pleasant gathering. Anyways, you get it. But check it out. So, what I like about California is you can go pretty much almost any neighborhood, any area, and there's like lemon, lime trees, fruit bearing trees. The branches aren't so pleasant, but look at this. Bam, that's just like a cluster of limes. Limes? Oh, this might not even be limes. I don't even know. It might not even be ready yet, whatever it is. It's just a little, yeah, it's limes. Bam, just limes. We got webs on them though, so. But, yep, that's the goal for today. Is got to get out there, and Yahuwah told me to go to Balboa Park, so that's where I'm gonna go and put that on my mind. A few days ago, he's like, "Go to Balboa Park," and I was like, "For what?" I haven't been there in like years, like a couple years now, and it just dawned on me today or yesterday or something. He's like recently, he's like, "Yeah, go to Balboa Park because that's where I want you to collect some branches and some cool stuff out there to create the SaCUT, to make the SaCUT." And so I'm gonna do that today. Later on, try to make some time and grab some, and then not stress on it because he's giving me the understanding that it's not a Sabbath, like where you have to just rest, you know, and just meditate and get in the Word, and yeah, you come together. But this is more about coming together joyfully and making the SaCUT. So it's day off work because you're going out there and you're you're doing still doing some work, but to build a SaCUT. So you can do it that way too, because technically the scripture says, and on the 15th Yom, you gather. It says so. It says on the 15th Yom you gather. So I was like, man, I should do that in the evening, but it makes sense to do it during the day. All right. Yeah, yeah, no worries. Appreciate it. Shalom, man. Yeah. So that's it. That's all. Simple as that. I'm probably gonna do it that way. I'm gonna do half now, grab some stuff now, and then build it up probably tomorrow because I want to feel it more fulfillment of the Torah, the command where it says, and on the 15th Yom, you you gather these things. So I'm gonna gather some more tomorrow, so it's more not just gathering on the 14th Yom, the Yom before, but I'm gonna grab some now and then grab some tomorrow. So do it for a couple of days just so it feels more. We're still learning, so we want to try to get it to the point where it feels more natural. We're not thinking about it as much. We, consciously, and because we all want to obey Yah, we want to please Him. So that's the aim, to not do in a way that is not pleasing to Him. So I don't think there's nothing that stops us from starting early, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with going out on the 15th Yom and doing it on the 15th Yom. That's supposedly a Shabbat, but then it's not a Shabbat because it never calls it a Shabbat. It calls it a MaQRA, an assembly, a gathering. So that being said, joyful MaQRA, joyful gathering, MaQRA Shalom, pleasant gathering, gathering the twigs and the branches and the leafy greens and gathering with each other. If you can, gather together with Mashpaka in your area. I'm in San Diego. If you keep SaCUT, you can reach out to me. We try to meet up and do something tonight or tomorrow, however you want to do it. And so let's get together and gather. So that, KhaG SaMakh, Yom ASaPh SaCUT, and MaQRA Shalom. Yahusha Mashiach, Kadanainu Alahainu, Duru Duru Dur, Aman, Waman, Waman. Hallelujah, Yahusha. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Yahusha. Right, that bid you farewell. Shalom, shalom, Yasharal. Shalom, 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 Mashpaka. And MaQRA Shalom for KhaG SaMakh Yom ASaPh SaCUT. Shalom.